tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Adrienne Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is author, Dr. Vladimir Lange, and actor Adrian Sparks. Author Vladimir Lange was born in Russia, grew up in Brazil, was homeschooled in Iran, then attended the Jesuit convent high school in France, where he decided he wanted to be a surgeon. He studied at NYU and was then accepted to Harvard Med School. I know you wrote this thriller, Fatal Memories, but shouldn't your life story on the way to Harvard have been your first novel? Or maybe your first book?
Maybe it'll be my next novel.
Oh, maybe that'll be the next one. I mean, how interesting was that?
You know what was really interesting is my parents escaped from Russia. It goes way back there because my grandfather was an officer in the White Army during the Communist Revolution. So when the whites, the Tsar people lost, they had to run away from Russia. So that was difficult. They settled in Czechoslovakia, and then during World War II, when the Germans sort of liberated Czechoslovakia, they had to run away from the Germans. And really snuck under the barbed wire in the middle of the night, abandoned everything, and spent 2 years there. And when they finally decided to go to Brazil, which was as far away from communism as you can get, they arrived in Brazil.
What was your father doing?
My father was an engineer.
So he just got work along the way?
Not at all. It's a good question.
Not at all.
No, actually, when they went from Europe to Brazil, arrived in Brazil, 2 suitcases, not speaking the language, and with his wife, me, a 2-year-old son, and his mother and his father, and they supported themselves stringing beads.
In Brazil?
In Brazil for the first 6-8 months till they could actually find a job in his profession.
That is so the story of immigrants who are like hardworking, right?
Completely.
You'll do anything, but then so then he was in Brazil. Then how'd you get to Iran?
We were in Brazil for 12 years, and everybody who lives...
Oh, you were? So you grew up in Brazil. So you speak Portuguese?
I speak Portuguese and some Spanish. So, yeah. But Brazil, basically, no Europeans want to stay in Brazil. Everybody's dream is to come to America. So you get on the waiting list and you wait, and it can be 10, 15 years to get into the States. But he got a job offer for an American company in Iran.
Oh, I see.
So we went to Iran and spent 2 years there.
So he was working in Iran. Then
Iran
did you learn
working.
to speak Arabic?
No, actually, it was a very...
Did you go to American school there?
Homeschooling, essentially.
Oh, homeschooling. That's what you said. Well, were your parents educated enough to homeschool you?
No, because there were half a dozen other kids. They had one classroom school where all the kids went, and they had a teacher that they imported, and so I sort of studied it. That's where I picked up some of the English, because basically I didn't know any English when I arrived there.
So is that called homeschooling, just the one class, like a one-school classroom, or one classroom for all ages?
It's sort of, yeah. It's a little beyond homeschooling, but it certainly was not a real school.
I see.
And then they said, well, now you need some real schooling, so they sent me to France, to a Jesuit convent, where I spent a year there.
Well, they knew enough to send you away to get some education.
Education was paramount to them. They really wanted me to be educated.
And when you were at the convent school, did you find it so much stricter from where you were?
Partially stricter, and partially now I changed languages again. So now it's in Russian and in French. So
oh, it was in Russian? Completely.
So I had to learn French.
But didn't you speak Russian at home?
I spoke Russian, but not French. So I had to work on that. And that was kind of difficult, but decided to finish that. And then during that time in biology class, I really dissecting a frog, actually. I decided I want to be a surgeon.
That's where you actually, like you were in high school.
I was in high school. Way back then, I'm going to be a surgeon. Not a doctor, but a surgeon. I really like working with my hands. So finished high school. That second part was through homeschooling, and then came to the States. And I arrived here when I was 17. The only person from my family who was here was my grandmother.
Oh, she was here.
My parents stayed behind, and applied to NYU. NYU took me, and even though I had this bizarre high school equivalency diploma that,
But that was good. They were smart because you did well, and then you got into Harvard.
In retrospect, yes.
Yeah. Did you always want to go to Harvard? How'd you think of Harvard? Here you are from France. I mean, you didn't have any background for any of this.
You know, I had no idea how hard it was. I arrived to NYU and said, I'll go through NYU and then pick a medical school. What's the best one? Harvard. Okay, I think I'll go to Harvard. And only halfway through NYU, I heard that they haven't taken anybody from NYU into Harvard for the past 5 years.
Is that right?
Nobody was accepted.
Is that right? So, but how did you know? You came to New York because your grandmother was here? Or you came to
She
New
was
York
living in New York.
She
and
was
they
living in
figured-
New York, so that's why you went to NYU. But then you chose Harvard and you applied and got in, obviously.
And they accepted me. And so
did you become a surgeon?
I started a surgical residency, actually finished Harvard, came out here to California.
Oh, you came out to California. You married a physician in school.
Married a physician who was going to Tufts. And
Oh, she
so
was
we
going
met-
to Tufts?
and
Oh, so
we
you
met-
were real Boston people there,
Totally
Cambridge, Boston.
But you know, I grew up in warm countries, so Boston and snow just didn't agree with me. So we came out to California, did half of a surgical residency, and then decided that emergency medicine was much more interesting,
Oh.
and started the ER.
So you just went into is that just only ER work? Just emergency room work?
Only emergency room. You work long shifts, but few shifts, and that gave me a chance to pursue all sort of hobbies.
Oh, I see. And the hobby that came about was video. What was that?
You know how it started?
Video series, which has won awards.
Won a lot of awards. We've done really well as a company. But the way it started, I got into mountain climbing, and would take pictures and make slideshows and show it to nurses at the hospital where I work.
You mean just as a recreation?
Just captive audience.
Captive, they couldn't leave.
Captive audience. And the administrator of the hospital said, why don't you do a slideshow about the hospital? I said, well, I don't know. So I shot some pictures in between patients, to walk around the hospital with the camera. And we put a slideshow together about the hospital, which was very well received.
Was that in LA or outside?
Lancaster.
In Lancaster.
Antelope Valley Hospital. And one thing led to another. I said, well, if I can do slideshows, I can do videos. And the first video we decided to do was on mammography.
Oh,
so
really?
that started that. It was in the mid-'80s now.
So were they teaching videos, more or less?
That one was a video to motivate women to have mammographies done.
Oh, that's what I mean. But they were all instructional in some way. They were...
Exactly. They were basically, here's your mammogram, here's why your breast is going to be squeezed, and here's how we get the image and so forth.
So where were those shown?
They were shown at hospitals where women would come for mammograms.
I see.
So they would see the video before that and do it. So that led to do a video on breast self-exam, and then a video about breast biopsy, and so it grew into a little constellation of women health videos.
Oh, how great. Yeah. So then you had time to write a book. Then how did the book come about?
This book came much later. The first book actually was on breast cancer, because my wife was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh.
And
but here you were doing all these videos, and then you did a book, but it wasn't a novel. This is actually the first novel.
This is my first novel.
I see.
And that came much more recently, and mostly because it's in fiction you can really explore areas that you can't explore in nonfiction.
When you started to write this book, Fatal Memories, was there a mentor in mind? Was there somebody who had written books like this that you thought about or knew? Or
I follow a lot of Michael Crichton's writings.
I love Michael.
Michael Crichton. He was actually 2 years ahead of me at Harvard Med School.
That's what I thought.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I know he's great.
Exactly. Yeah, and I admire his work a lot. Very varied. Tess Gerritsen, Michael Palmer.
Yeah.
All of those.
So the story, how long did it take you to write this?
3 years working part-time.
Oh, part-time.
Because I had to still do my medical stuff in the
You were still working.
I was still doing the
But were you doing the videos?
Doing the videos by day and writing by night, essentially.
I see. Okay, tell us really quickly about this book.
It's a technomedical thriller. The story of Ann Powell, who is a neuropsychiatrist, Harvard Med School graduate also, coincidentally. She invents a brain scanner that is used to access memories and act as a shortcut to psychotherapy. Because of a clash with the FDA, she has to continue her work in Russia.
Did you fashion this after your wife?
No.
No? Okay.
No, it was purely fictional
Oh,
characters.
okay, all fictional characters. Okay, so she invents this brain scan,
Brain scanner.
and then you go back into time.
She goes to Russia to continue research and accidentally, during a lab accident, is exposed to the beam of the device and starts having flashbacks to
Oh,
a
that's
time
why.
many centuries ago.
I see.
And she was involved in a love triangle back then, and the love triangle replays itself now. So,
How difficult was it for you to go back and forth? Did you draw on when you were living in Russia?
you know, I grew up listening to Russian songs, reading Russian stories, Russian history, and whole Russian culture is very near and dear to me. And it gave me a lot of pleasure being able to incorporate that into modern Russia.
You have a lot of say, medicine colliding with business and politics, and a lot of frustrating situations in here. How was that to write about, or were those real things that were happening in your life?
You know, as a video producer for Siemens, GE, and all the big manufacturers, I get to see how a lot of their products are developed. Mm-hmm. And I get to sort of participate in the trials and tribulations of launching a new product or a medical career colliding with business. So a lot of that is actually in the book.
And you actually experienced it. But was it frustrating being a doctor and seeing what they're doing on the other side? I mean, you have to face two sides of this, don't you?
You do, and I think if you see it from their point of view, you sort of understand the needs of the pharmaceutical companies. And so.
Yeah, but I think to me, and I don't want to get into this philosophical discussion, but the pharmaceuticals sometimes don't tell us everything. And I think if you were there making videos, writing about it, you see a lot of what goes on that we don't see as the public.
You see a lot of something of what the public doesn't hear about, but you also understand why it's not necessarily information released to the public.
Whether we don't have to know it?
If it doesn't impact on how the drug works,
yes.
Sometimes it's not in anybody's best interest to point that out.
Yeah.
Because there's no free lunch. Every drug has side effects.
Exactly. It's true. I mean, it's true. Does that happen in your book?
Well, the very unfortunate or unexpected side effect of this apparently totally benign brain scanner, that instead of just recalling memories from age 2, all of a sudden propels her several centuries back and recalls memories from far long ago.
Yeah, that's a side effect you didn't expect.
Unexpected.
Yeah, unexpected. So you have to read to the end to see what it is. I thank you so much for coming in, Vladimir. I love the exciting life you've led. Thanks for sharing it with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And don't go away. We'll be right back with actor Adrian Sparks.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Actor Adrian Sparks was born and raised in London, England. He went to Waukegan Township High School and graduated from the University of Washington with a BFA in theater. Adrian has a great history in the classics, which he's performed in some of the important theaters like the Guthrie, Seattle Rep, Old Globe in San Diego, and the Cincinnati Playhouse. For the last 15 years, he's been in Los Angeles, acting in film and TV. How did you get from London to the University of Washington?
Well, my father was a reporter for the London Times. Oh. And then when I was 1 year old, he came over to this country.
Oh, he did?
And became a minister. Went to the University of Chicago, got divinity school, became a Methodist minister.
Oh, so that was Waukegan, Illinois.
That was Faith Methodist Church in Waukegan, Illinois.
I
yeah.
thought that was Waukegan, Illinois, but I thought from London that you had spent some time in London growing up, and the township was something from England.
I see. No,
but I knew
Illinois.
Waukegan. Oh, so you don't have any accent at all.
Not a bit, no.
And you really don't have any connections to the classics other than being born in London.
Well, I have a connection to the classics in that I've spent most of my life doing them. Yeah,
yes, but I mean, what was the influence then?
My mother was a professional actress.
Aha, I see.
And my father was a minister, and that's pretty good acting there too.
So he gave up journalism?
Yep. He came over here. The first thing he did was he was publicity for Hart, Schaffner, and Mark's suits.
Suit
There you go. See,
yes, I know that.
In New York, and then he decided to be a minister. And
well, did you study the classics in Europe at all?
no, I studied the BFA. It was Duncan Ross was the head of the Old Vic Theatre School in London, in England, and then he came over and he started this program in
So you didn't
in
have to
Seattle.
go there.
So I found out about the program in Seattle and auditioned, and then was accepted. Yeah.
Are you a Shakespeare fan?
Oh, huge Shakespeare fan.
Well, tell us, what draws audiences to Shakespeare?
The language, it's the words. It's the same thing as the Hemingway. It's the words. It's the use of words to create whole other worlds that we can go into. The last Shakespeare that I did was I directed. We took all of the history plays: Richard II, Henry IV, Part 1 and Part 2, Henry V, Henry VI, Part 1, 2, and 3, and Richard III. Cut it down into a 3-evening journey of the cycle of the kings.
Really?
Did it right here in Hollywood, yeah.
You did that?
Yeah.
You played in all of them? You acted in them?
Well, I
or you
acted
wrote?
in one of the pieces, I did the adaptation, and I directed it.
Oh, you directed it?
Yeah.
And then how do you adapt? Do you change Shakespeare's words?
No, I might have changed the order of Shakespeare's words.
Yeah, because you wonder when
but
you
I
adapt
made it,
something.
I made it a point to not put in anything that wasn't Shakespeare. And it was about directing where the attention of the audience went. These plays are rich in a lot of levels. We focused on the cycle of the crown, where the crown went. So
That was great.
yeah.
So, what's your favorite Shakespeare play?
I think the favorite to perform was when I was younger and I did Mercutio in Romeo and Juliet.
Oh, of course. Of course. Why would I ask? Doesn't everyone want to be Romeo?
Yeah. Well, no, I didn't get to be Romeo.
But
I
you
was
got
Mercutio.
to be, yeah, but everybody wants to be Romeo, probably.
Well, Romeo always gets the girl.
That's right. That's what I thought
right.
you were saying. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Open Fist Company.
Yes.
Tell us about that, the theater company.
It's a very powerful collective of actors who have created their own company, and they run and make the decisions and produce and do all aspects of it.
Is there an artistic director?
Martha Dempson.
I
And she's
see.
also directed the Hemingway piece.
So you have artistic director at Open Fist Theater.
We have a staff. The staff is all actors.
Is
They're
it
all
a pl-
members of the company.
Is it a theater too?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you have your own theater.
Oh, yeah.
Where is that theater?
It's a beautiful, well, not beautiful, it's an old rundown building, but it's a 3,000 square foot black box.
We like that.
And it's on La Brea, just south of Hollywood Boulevard.
Oh.
Used to be, this is interesting, Bob Hope used to rehearse his USO shows there.
So it's, where is it, south of what?
South of Hollywood Boulevard on La Brea on the west side of the street.
Oh, yeah.
Set back from the street.
Was it
a
like
bit.
where KFJ, what was that radio station? There was a radio station, so like a modern building there?
That might have been before I was aware. I'm not aware of that, yeah.
Ah, but it must be right around in that area.
It's got a big silver front to it, but it's set back from the.
It's set back
But
a
been
little-
here for, boy, now see, Martha's going to kill me. 15 years, maybe, a long time. One of the really established theater companies.
Well, when you say a black box, can you put as many seats in there or make the stage as big?
It's completely flexible. We've trucked in truckloads of dirt and created a rainforest. We've brought in loads of asphalt and created a street scene. One of the last shows of this season was Lighty Breeze, which took place at the ocean. So sand, and you can reconfigure the audience. It's a very flexible space.
How many seats can you put in it? Is it under
We keep it under
equity?
99 because it's an equity waiver house.
199?
99.
Oh, only 99.
Yeah.
So you can
99.
adjust those anyway. That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
It's I haven't been there. I'm sorry I haven't
Well,
been
see,
there.
you're going to come see the Hemingway, and you'll discover what a wonderful place it
I
is.
do. So tell me, you're going to do the Hemingway there.
Yeah.
What's the name of the play?
The name is Papa.
Oh, it is Papa.
Papa. It was written
Yes.
by a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, John DeGroot, who is actually not a playwright. He's a journalist, and he calls it his 10-year obsession with Hemingway. He spent 10 years getting to know Hemingway's friends, Hemingway's family, learning all these things. So it's a historically accurate piece, very entertaining piece.
When did he write it?
Well, it's 10 years ago was when it went to Broadway.
Oh, it did.
And it was on Broadway. Had a wonderful run on Broadway. Got wonderful reviews.
Who played it then?
Len Cariou.
Oh, yes.
You know the what
Yeah,
was it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Len Cariou.
Yeah. And but John has been working with us here in Hollywood, and we're doing rewrites. We're shifting some things around. We're making it our own.
Where does he live?
He's in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
So he came out here to
No,
work with
this
you?
has been this is what's interesting. I've been working with him maybe 2 years over the phone. We are going to meet opening night, and I told the director I want him to meet me as Hemingway.
How great.
Yeah,
Have
yeah.
you done any research yourself other than talking to him?
Huge amounts.
Did you go to
huge
Cuba?
amounts. No, all of my research has been LA based, but it's been a lot of reading, a lot of biographies, pictures. Part of the process of mounting this show has also been we've collected vintage magazines and photographs.
Oh,
So there will be a
yes.
whole lobby display. So the audience will be very saturated by Hemingway.
When they come
When
in,
they
they're going
come
to
in.
feel it all. And then, when they did this on Broadway, did they do any of these things, or are these all your own
These
creation?
These are all where we're taking and making it better, yeah.
So, do you have to have a director
Oh, yeah.
in a one-person
Oh,
play?
you absolutely have to. Otherwise, you need somebody sitting out there going, you're losing my attention here, this is the connection here, we need to do this. It's vital. It's vital. Unfortunately, Martha is a fabulous director. We've worked together on other projects, so we have a real good...
How much research does Martha do then? With
Same.
you, or
Together.
or separately?
Together, and then we share, and did you hear this, and I read this, and John DeGroot is just a
Oh, so you
wealth
do
of
call him up?
Oh, constantly, and he do every time. It's like he's got hours of material in his brain. Every time I mention one thing, oh, well, Hemingway did so, and so there's a very rich tapestry that we have to draw from for this man.
How is the stage set? Because here's a one
Good question.
person.
Yeah, good question. Well, we have the photographs of Hemingway's Cuba home. It's been preserved. It's all as it was when Hemingway was
Down
living
by the
there.
water.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yep. Well, you have. Good for you.
Yes,
Good.
He had that ship in the backyard.
Yes. The Pilar, right?
The Pilar, whatever. We
that's
looked
right.
in the
Yeah,
windows.
that's right.
It's kind
So
of
we
a
have the
shack.
photographs. Yeah.
Kind of a wooden shack.
The inside, we got all with his bookcases
Yes.
and his heads. And what our design team has done is recreated his home. It's all suggestions, a lot of bookcases, animal heads. Cape Buffalo had a huge, beautiful old Cape Buffalo head.
So it takes place in Cuba then?
It takes
in
place
this
in
house?
1959
oh,
Cuba.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh, how.
Just after he won the Nobel Prize, which he called the Nobel Curse.
Why did he say that?
He said in the play, he says, you name me one writer who won the goddamn Nobel thing and didn't end up cursed.
Oh. He knew it. He cursed himself.
He said that he always had to have something to fight against, to climb, to get better and stronger. And he felt when you get the Nobel, you've done it all. So he lost
So how does Martha, your director, move you around the stage? Because when you're one person, and is it just 90 minutes, or is it 2 acts?
It's 2 acts.
It is 2
Each
acts.
act is about 45 minutes, 50 minutes long. It's under 2 hour
But you're
evening.
the only one there.
Only one.
So how do you move, and what do you do
It all
with the
comes
lights?
from a very... DeGroot has really constructed a beautiful play. It takes place in the middle of a crisis in Hemingway's life. And I won't say what it is because I don't want to give it away. But he's very personally involved. He's very personally upset. The audience is an intruder. The audience is actually are the photographers for Life magazine who have arrived unannounced. Gradually he warms up to them. The alcohol flows as it would with Hemingway. And he begins to relive experiences, share experiences. And you have a room with a desk and a phone, and you live in that space.
You keep moving around.
And it's again, there's Martha saying, you know, you've been here, let's,
Yeah.
and then we find a very organic, supported way to, well, I could get up here and then I would be so, and we find that's.
What about the lights? Do they change, or is it just you changing?
No, it's a very realistic setting.
And music? Is there music?
Well, again, we've really focused on, yes, there's the second act is a catharsis, King Lear style, huge, with thunder, and it's a tropical storm. And
perfect.
So, yes, it's very dramatic, but it's also very realistic.
And how do you make up to be realistic besides your beard and your hair?
What do I do?
What do you do?
What do I do? I'm exactly the same size as Hemingway. We could have worn each other's clothes.
I wondered about that. Do you stoop? Do you change your body?
Yes. Hemingway had just before this had survived 2 back-to-back plane crashes. Obituaries were written about him all over the world. And he spent his later years in a great deal of pain, very stiff. So part of the process with Martha has been saying, you know, you're looking a little limber here, so it's
stiffen up.
it's working. He was in pain. And in the play, the barometer drops, the storm is coming, and that aggravates the pain. So you have a posture that you assume. Yeah.
And costuming?
Jeff Schoenberg is doing the costumes, and we have all the beautiful pictures of all the clothes Hemingway wore, his shoes and his little hat that he loved to wear. And
do you change a little bit?
A little bit, yes. We're doing a little bit. It all takes place within one afternoon, but again, I don't want to say, but there's some shifting that happens. And
yeah, because I would imagine that anything that you're changing on your body so that the audience.
Well, there's a very familiar look we have of Hemingway with a black beret from his Paris days. You've seen that, I'm sure. Well, he talks about Paris, so we just kind of put that little beret on there, and then he's reliving an experience in Paris, and he's talking about the experience in Paris. Yeah.
I love the theater. Look what you brought us tonight.
Well, now you have to come.
Yes, thank you.
You have to come.
Thanks very much, Adrienne, for explaining all of this to us.
Very nice to talk with you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching us today. And we'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles. Keep writing to 777 South Figueroa 90017. Thanks. Bye.